Hey everybody, thank you for joining. We have people from the US, Germany. We have people speaking French from the US as well. So it's amazing. I will be sharing my screen. All right, perfect. Richard is the co-host, so it's all good. A couple of words about myself and my company, i.DO. I have been using Asana for a very long time. You probably saw me on YouTube or LinkedIn or the forum with Richard. I have been very active in the community for the past few years, and I was able to turn my passion for Asana into a job because now I have a team with me. We are called i.DO. We are a solutions partner. We provide consulting and licenses. I'm just going to write that down, consulting and licenses. So if you ever need anything in terms of consulting or licenses, you can reach out to me and my team. We will be happy to help you. Today, I want to share 10 secrets with you. So obviously, this is not something that are hidden in Asana. It's not a secret, but it might be something you haven't realized existed, something that you might have not seen using Asana. I will assume you already know what Asana is. I will not take you through the basics of Asana, but I will try to share a couple of interesting features that very often are being overlooked. So let's start and let's go. There's currently 73 of you watching. Thanks you very much for being there. First, I want to talk about My Tasks. My Tasks is the most important view you have in Asana. This is really where you should spend your day. This is where you should go several times a day to manage your work. And there's a secret thing I want to show you, which is automation. If you look at your My Task view, it probably looks like this. You have recently assigned, today, upcoming, later. You might have a different combination. I know that I have different sections, but I think we all have at least the later section. And there's something really powerful that Asana used to have back in the days and is not there anymore by default, which is something called auto promotion, which is the ability to have a task move from the latest section all the way to the today section automatically. And this is something I want to show you how to do. I'm going to change my cursor. Here we go. If you go into customize and you go into rules, you will have the ability to create a new rule. So click on add rule, and you can actually, this is the one we are looking at. Due date is approaching, move task to a certain section. If you are on Asana, I think free and premium, you have the ability to create this one, and business and enterprise, obviously. So this is the first recommended rule. So if you click on this one, you can see that's the rule editor where you define the trigger and the action. And the trigger we're looking at today is the due date is approaching. In that case, the task is due today. When a task becomes due today, which means at midnight, when a task becomes due, we want that task to move to the top of the list. By default, it's going to go into recently assigned, but you can decide to make it go into the today section. Most people have tasks go into today. Personally, I have tasks go into recently assigned. And this is something I think had a great impact on my work, because very often you want to reevaluate a task that comes back to you from the past. You really want to make sure that it's still due today. You want to see if you can delegate. There's a couple of things you want to check before having that task set in your today section. So my suggestion is to use the recently assigned as a target for your automation. That's the first one I really suggest you create. There's a second one, which is quite hidden, but is really powerful, which is the following. If you go into add rule, and that requires a business plan or enterprise, if you create a custom rule, there's something, a trigger that says task is no longer blocked. This one is amazing. It means that if you were depending on something, if you were blocked by something, then you can actually wait for that dependency to be removed. You can wait for that task to be either deleted or completed, or the dependency to be removed. And then you can move that task elsewhere. And in that case, I want the task to be moved to the top of the list. Same deal, same concept. I want that task to go into the recently assigned section. And again, I want to reevaluate. That means that anything that is blocked could actually go into the later section. And then you just wait for your colleague to actually work on their stuff, complete their work. And when they're done, your task will go at the top of your My Task view. This is something I use very, very often. Very often I'm assigned on something, let's say this one, and I know I'm blocked by someone else. So I create the dependency myself and I move the task into the later section. All right, that was the first secret. The second one is related to the second most important view, which is the inbox. The inbox has a very specific button that is also very important. That's the expand button. That's the one. It has to be blue. If the button is not blue, you are completely missing out on some comments. And I have an example for you. Right there, you have a couple of notifications. This one at the top has 2 comments, one from Lauren and one from myself. As you can see, I'm Michelle in that demo space. You can see my button is blue. You can see the 2 comments. When you log into Asana the first time, the button is not blue. It's actually white. When the button is white, you don't see everything. So you are actually missing out on a lot of comments, because if you look at what I said there, you are completely missing Lauren's comment, which could have great repercussions. So make sure to have that button actually enabled. While we are in the inbox, make sure to always archive things you have dealt with. It's really important. The goal is really to have inbox 0 at the end of the day, or at least as often as possible. It's not going to be possible at the end of every day, but try to reach inbox 0 as often as possible. The same thing goes with the email. It's really important. I know it doesn't seem that important, but once you manage to reach inbox 0 often, you'll see how amazing it is. So try to archive every time you've dealt with something. I know that some of you like to filter things down into the inbox. I'm completely fine with this as long as you go back to the old filter once in a while. You just have to make sure that you see everything. If you filter because you have too many notifications, and if you filter as a way to deal with that amount of notification, maybe something else is wrong. So maybe we have to talk so I can teach you different ways to manage your inbox. Also, I wanted to emphasize that if you want to start using the inbox today, you can archive everything and really start from scratch. If you've been using Asana for a while, if you haven't archived anything, there's going to be a massive amount of notifications, and it might be a bit hard for you to archive things one by one. So make sure to use the archive all button. Last tip in the inbox, if you use the key E on your keyboard, it actually archives stuff. So if I go there and I use E, it archives. And you can actually enable this in Gmail as well. And to me, this has changed everything. I can archive things very quickly. That has been amazing to me. I'm going back to the list. That was the second secret. Let's talk about saved searches. If you go into the search there at the top, you actually have access to a quick search. If you type something, you have a couple of suggestions that match your search. And you can also go into advanced search and you can add different criteria. Once you select the search bar, you're going to have a list of results. That list can actually be saved. So if you click on the star button, there used to be a save button, but it doesn't exist anymore. So if you click on the star button, then you will be able to access that search later and again and again and again. It's not going to be a snapshot. It's really going to be an always up-to-date search result. This is really something you want to do, specifically if you are a manager. For example, I have one right there, overdue tasks from my team. So if you go into the filter there, you can see I selected incomplete, I selected the last 100 days, and I can also select people from my team. So I'm working with Dustin, obviously, and Justin, they're working with me. We have Lauren as well. That could be my search, and I could be looking for overdue as well as due today task from my team. And I can save this and I can access this again and again. So this is really a way for you to save time, especially if you search for the same things again and again. Okay, let's look at project templates. When you use project templates, there's potentially a couple of features you haven't seen existed. If I go into a team that is called field marketing, I have a template right there, the tour event template. And if you go and edit the content of the template, there's a bunch of things that you might know don't exist. For example, very recently, Asana added the ability to not only assign to someone a task in the template, but also assigned to a role. So now you have the ability to define roles. And what's great about this is that when you use the template to create a project, then Asana will ask you who's going to fill in those shoes, who's going to be the marketing, I don't know what that is, superstar, who's going to be the project manager. And then Asana will assign all those tasks to the person that you chose. So this is something that's really handy. The only thing you have to know is that at the moment, you cannot change your mind afterwards. You can't swap the roles between people unless you manually select them and reassign them. Also, if you don't choose who's going to be the project manager when you create the project, then it's too late. You can't choose again and select someone else. But still, that's a nice feature. And I know a lot of my clients were really happy about this one. Also, you might not know this, but you have the ability to define a date, but it's not going to be an actual hard due date. It's going to be a relative date. And if you click on a cell like this one, you can decide how many days after the project start date this task will be dated after. And you can also decide to change the strategy. For example, if you're working on organizing an event, usually you work backwards from the event date. So if that's the case, if you're working this way, you can always click there on the after project start date, and you can actually change the strategy the template was built around. Instead of using a start date building forward, you can use an end date building backwards. At the moment, there's no way to have both strategies. So you can't have the project date be in the middle, and you can't have negative numbers in those fields, but everybody's hoping that this is going to be the case one day. So let's hope it is. Oh, and the last thing I wanted to show you in templates is within the settings, you can actually decide to which portfolio the project will go. That means if you have an event template you're using over and over again, you can actually have an event portfolio and make sure that every single project created from that template actually goes to that portfolio. It's a way to make sure that things are consistent and that project always go into the same portfolio. Let's talk about custom fields. Everybody knows custom fields. It's available with the premium plan, but there's one thing you might not have think of. I'm going to go into the invoice project that we have within this demo account. We had the idea with my team to create a drop-down called action. And we have things like invoice sent or paid invoice. What that does is, thanks to automation, we actually bundled together a couple of actions and we put them behind that option in the dropdown. If you select paid invoice in the dropdown, you're going to have a rule that will be triggered. That rule will change the status of the invoice. We have a status dropdown. It's going to also change the date. It's going to choose today as the due date, and it's going to complete the tasks. It's going to do 3 things at once. And for us, it's a way to save time as well as making sure we are consistent in the way we work. We have the same thing for invoice sent. It's going to change the date 30 days from now and change the status as well. And I think post a comment. And we can actually have a look at the way it was set up. If you go into customize, if you go into rules, then this is an example of what it does. So when the action dropdown is selected on sent invoice, what we do is we change the status, we change the due date, we post a comment, and also we make sure to clear the action dropdown to be able to use that again. We're using this everywhere. It's amazing. It really allows us to have consistent behavior across the board. And this has been really powerful. It's kind of hidden because it's a workaround in the way we're using custom fields, but I think it's really working well. And you should really consider doing this for yourself. I also have that in my task view. I have a drop down with actions that I use very often in my own tasks. Let's talk about dashboards for a minute. When you go into a project like invoices, again, actually that's, I think IT request has a better one. Each project has the different layouts, and each and every single project has a dashboard. And this is really a great way to get some insights about how the project is behaving and the progress you have within that project. And the more you structure your project with custom fields, the better the dashboard will be. If you have drop-down fields, if you have number fields, if you're using the new formula custom field, you're going to have the ability to create amazing dashboard. What is very interesting about dashboard as well, and in that case, that's a bit of hidden, but each chart has actually a feature called click-through. So if you look at this pie chart, and if you click on the slice of the pie, you can click through the slice, and actually you're going to be taken to the actual data that was used as a way to build that chart. This is something, it's a way to get a search result saved as well. And this is something you can use very often if you want to see the data that was being used to build that chart within the dashboard. And again, each project has a different dashboard. It comes with pre-built charts, but you can get rid of them all and then recreate the ones that make sense. Let's talk about forms for a minute. Forms are amazing. We use them all the time. I think I checked the other day, we have close to 40 different forms. We use them for everything. Every time we need someone from the outside to give us info, we use a form. If you look at a project like this, this is basically a list of requests for the IT department. This is a great example of a way to use forms. And if you look at the customize menu, and forms are a premium feature, you have a form that looks like this. So basically a list of questions you can ask and people will answer. And every time someone submits the form, it creates a task. What I wanted to show you today is the ability to connect a question to an actual custom field. If you look at this question, for example, the type of request people have for the IT department, you can see that this question, which is a drop-down question, was actually connected to a custom field. You can either create the custom field directly from the form, or you can create the field before and then connect the question to the drop-down. What's going to happen is, if you add new options in the custom field dropdown, this is going to be added to the form as well. Also, what's going to happen is when someone selects an answer from the dropdown, this task that is being created as a result will have that value selected automatically. So if we open some of the submissions we had, you can see the priority and the type of request actually exist as a custom field, instead of only being written down into the description. What's amazing about this is that you can really build dashboards automatically based on the submissions that you get, because the dashboards cannot actually look at the description of a task. It can only look at the values you have structured using custom field. The other thing that's amazing is the ability to have automation. For example, if a priority is actually high, then you can create an automation that does something as a result. So if you go into the rules, you go into add rule, and you can do stuff like this. This automation would be a business feature. If a task is added to this project from the form, and if the task also has a priority set to high, then you can assign it to someone. For example, you can assign it to myself, and you can also post a comment that says, this is urgent. So this is something that's really powerful, the ability to react to the answers given in the form based on the actual detailed answer that people gave. So this is the tips we have on forms. In terms of structure, I know that there's something people very often ask, is the ability to have two levels of sections. If you go in a project like this, you organize a show in London and you have sections created in the project. And we broke down the project in stages, and we have one section for each stage. And sometimes we have clients that want to have two levels of sections. This is actually possible. And the only way to do this is to have custom made sections like this, as well as a dropdown like this. When that's the case, if you sort the project by the dropdown, and if you go back into the sort feature and actually untick the sort within sections, then you get two levels. So you can see the marketing value is being used as the first level. And then within that level, you're going to have a breakdown based on the custom sections that you've created in your project. And if I go down, I have everyone from marketing, and then I have any service, etc., etc. So it's really a way to get two levels. If you want to reverse the levels, if you want the overview to be above, then you have to change the approach. You need to have overview and week numbers as a dropdown, and you need to have the department as a custom-made section. And while we are on the section, I know that very often people do not know this, but you can actually have sections within subtasks as well. And this is quite hidden because you have to use a keyboard shortcut to do this. And the shortcut is actually Tab N as a way to create a new section. There's no way there to have two levels of sections, but I think it's pretty nice to know that you can actually create levels like this. The before last secret I have is multi-homing. This is a very, very powerful feature. If you look at a project like this one, like a team meeting, you can use multi-homing to bring into this project tasks that actually live elsewhere. You never duplicate work, you just place a task in different project. That's what multi-homing is. And if you look at the project column you have here, you can see that those tasks actually come from a different project. And if I open the task, I can see that the task actually belongs to two different projects at the same time. It's the same task. Whatever you do on the task will impact both projects, but that gives you the ability to give some visibility of a task to a different group without that task being removed from the project it was initially created in. So this is really something that's powerful. Multi-homing, remember this. And the last one before we finish, we have 5 minutes left. I want to show you how to reduce the number of notifications that you get. And to do this, you have to go into your profile settings. So you click on yourself in the top right corner, you go into My Settings, and then you go into Notifications. The first thing to do is to disable all emails, untick all the boxes. You really want to be using the inbox within Asana. It's more powerful, it's easier, it's nicer, it's faster, it's just way better, and you don't want to get an avalanche of email all the time. So just disable all emails. The other one I want you to do today is to untick that box at the bottom. Tasks added, this one doesn't make sense. In 99% of workflows that you build, it doesn't make sense to be notified about new tasks being added. So you really want to opt out of this one. Once you untick that box, it's not going to apply to all the projects you are already a member of. So you really want to go back into the manage individual project, and then you might want to untick those projects one by one. So just if you have a long list, just get a coffee and just tick, tick, tick until you are at the bottom of the list. But I think it's definitely worth it because it's a way to not be notified every time someone creates a new task. It just doesn't make sense. All right, I'm done. Richard, are you still there?
Yes, great stuff. Very useful.
Thanks. Any question I should address before we move on?
Yes, there's one question, anonymous. When onboarding a new employee, is it possible to swap with an ex-employee to make sure that all the rules and automations are also attributed to the new employee? This was during the template. Yeah,
it's actually not possible. When someone leaves, you have to deprovision them, and you can't swap their account for someone else. So you would have to reassign tasks and edit rules. And I think when you deprovision someone, the rules will break. It's not ideal, but that's the way it is at the moment. You can't swap with someone that's arriving.
Okay, and Don Hansen is asking, I'm still unable to figure out how to include a note on a task to everyone on the team, or to set a task to everyone as an all-inclusive at mention to, for example, at everyone or at team name.
It doesn't exist. And to be honest, I think this is not because they did not have time to code this. I think this is a deliberate choice. I think they don't want Asana to become like Slack, where people mention everyone all the time. It's just getting very busy. So this feature doesn't exist. We have been working on something to cover that gap. This is called an I.DO assistant. And I'll be able to share the info with that person if she can actually send me an email. We found a way to do this, but I think This is something you should try not to do too often. One suggestion I have is to create one task with the entire team as collaborators, and then use the same task again and again to share a message to everyone. Also, something you can do is to build something like this. We've built this ourselves, which is a news feed. It's a project where everyone is a member of, and then every time you create a task, you make sure they are being notified. So if you go into the members, and if you go into manage notifications, this is one of the only use case where you actually want to tick all the boxes. And I think it does make sense. Everyone will be notified about a new task being added, and then your message, your note could be actually embedded into that task.
Okay, and a real quick one from Tom Hart, since we were on comments and collaborators. Is there a way to bulk add collaborators to tasks?
Yes, actually, if you multi-select tasks, so if you select one, you use the shift key, you select the last one, then you have this bulk edit action box at the bottom, and within the 3-dot menu, you have something that says add collaborators. And there you can type people and they will be added to all the tasks.
I'm not sure if the question was maybe adding a lot of collaborators again, in
Oh,
a team.
Yeah, same, I think same answer. You can't
we
bulk
can't
add them.
In some surfaces you can mention a team, but I'm trying to think of
To me, there's only one use case. It's the following: when you are on a task, you click on assignee, you click on assign duplicate, and there you can type a team name. That's the only one, but it's going to create a copy of the task, and you're going to have n and then copies. I'm pretty much done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stay around. I'm going to answer everything in the chat, and I'm going to answer the Q&A as well. But I wish everyone a good day, and I will see you around in September. Thanks, Richard.
Cheers.
Cheers. Let's head to the Q&A. Okay, so we have a question about the main benefit of using Asana instead of Microsoft Project. I never used Microsoft Project. The only feedback I got over and over again was that it was really hard to use, and people were having difficulty being onboarded. This is really a project manager tool, when Asana is really more tailored to everyone else. So usually project managers struggle a little bit when using Asana because they're missing some of the features. But I think it's definitely worth it because the adoption will be way better with everyone else. All right, we have a question about importing meetings from Outlook into Asana. So
that was, I think, a follow-up. I sent another question about the integration with Outlook and creating tasks.
Actually, do you want to answer this one?
I'm not actually sure. I think you can just create tasks and send them to Asana, but you can't really forward meeting invites.
Yeah, you can't really sync an Outlook calendar and an Asana project unless you're using third-party apps. Among those, you have something called ZZBox, you have Project Buddy as well. So those could be third-party apps that you can use to connect those two, but they're really not, at the moment, meant to be working together natively. I'm just looking at the remaining question. So is there a way in which Asana can automatically assign a task based on the availability? Not yet. I'm guessing this is on the roadmap. This is definitely the way they're going towards, especially with the workload feature being available and all the AI being built into the tool. So at the moment, you can't do that. But if you're using the workload feature, you can potentially see if someone is available and assign something to them. You can also assign something to someone and let them decide whether or not they have the bandwidth and assign back to you if they don't. Last question from anonymous attendee. How can I archive completed tasks within a project? Yeah, it's a good question. So for example, what you have on the screen is a project with a lot of completed tasks. By default, they're going to be showing up. So if you click on filter, you can actually filter and only see incomplete tasks. And if you click there, then you can save this as being the default view. You can save for everyone. That would be a way. If you want to go back and see everything, you can always go back into filter and remove that specific filter. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day and have a good summer holidays. Bye.